Ladies and gentlemen, in this Elden Ring video, I wanted to go over how you can prepare for the upcoming expansion, Shadow of the Erdtree. Whether you're looking to level a fresh character or just bring one of your tunes that have been through New Game Plus already, here's a nice checklist of important things you should probably do before entering the DLC area. So, two pieces of information that we know for sure that can help us figure out our best plan of action is number one, the entrance of the DLC will be in Mohgwyn's palace. This is of course located right after defeating Mohg, and we know this from the trailer. So with that being said, we know for a fact our tunes will have to not only defeat Radahn, but we're gonna have to be in a place powerful enough to take on Mohg himself. Essentially, he's going to be the gatekeeper to this DLC, and the barrier of entry we should keep in mind is if we're meeting that damage check with our characters and build to defeat him. The second thing that we know for sure is that the difficulty of the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC will be very much on par to endgame Elden Ring. So we're talking places like Altus Plateau, the Consecrated Snowfields, and Farum Azula. These are areas in Elden Ring we should be expecting the difficulty to be replicated. So with that, we now know where our character's strength should lie walking into the Shadow of the Erdtree. Now, Mohg is certainly not a pushover of a boss by any means, so you can really tell if your character and build is ready if you can defeat him. If you can, then we are ready for the difficulty and trials that await us in the upcoming DLC. However, if you're still on the struggle bus a bit, then maybe you need to work out that build just a little bit more. And actually, we have plenty of builds here on this channel for you to take a look at after this video if you're interested. Quick shameless plug. Now, talking about starting a new tune, a positive on starting a new character is Elden Ring is about 2 years old at this point. And speaking for myself, I know a lot of that 500 hour plus playtime muscle memory has gone out the window. So we're gonna have to get back into the groove of things, and a fresh start will allow you to do that without having to jump straight back into endgame Elden Ring. Now, something interesting that Miyazaki stated is that the surface of the DLC is going to be the size of Limgrave, which leads me to believe that there's going to be an additional large underground area, and having more experience under your belt will certainly not hurt for this lengthy expansion. So since a lot of us haven't played in a good amount of time, let's take a little refresh on some of the things we need to be on the lookout for. First off is our memory stones and talismans. Memory stones are obviously our spell slots, and they're obtained through chests, defeating bosses, and bought from NPCs like the one in the Round Table Hold. These are obviously super important, and if you're starting a fresh character, make sure you go out, retrieve all of them, and get your spell slots capped. As for your talismans, it's time to consider what talismans you need for your specific build. Are you looking to play a mage type build that needs something like the Graven Moss talisman, increasing the potency of your sorceries? That can take a bit to get. Are you a heavy melee build looking for Godfrey's icon? These are spread all throughout the game, and if you dial in what builds you're considering to walk into DLC with now, we could then narrow down some of the more important talismans that's going to push our potential builds into that high DPS check needed for these endgame areas. And do me a big favor, if you're enjoying this video, consider hitting that like button for me, subscribe, and hitting the notification bell for more of this coming your way. Helps me out very much. Thank you so much, guys. The next thing that we need to keep in check is our armor and weapons we're considering that's going to match up with the build we're going with. If you're looking to try something new, for example, like using the Wing of Estelle, it's in your best interest to track these items down now, so this way they're available in case you want to go ahead and make that swap. It's of course also going to be in your best interest to have a plethora of armor and weapons at your disposal. This way you know, if you wanted to just beeline it to the DLC, you have a library of equipment to choose from. Additionally, what character level would be ideal for you to walk in there with? Now, Miyazaki also stated there will be a scaling system implemented. This way, we won't be able to just straight out level the content completely, so even our main characters are still going to find plenty of challenge walking into the Vale of Shadows. And for me personally, I'm saying a character around level 90 to 100 will be a very solid foundation for you to set a goal at. The reason why I think the safe zone is going to be around level 90 to 100 is because at level 90, you're still going to be able to make it through majority of the game if you haven't completed it already. So you'll still have a very solid foundation and majority of the armor, weapons, and other things that we're going to talk about in this video under your belt. So all of these things put together are going to give you a very solid foundation. If you have a surplus amount of armor and weapons to choose from, making sure your level isn't too low and have a solid amount of stat points to work with, this will leave us in a very happy place walking right into the expansion. Now the next thing to acknowledge is, do you have enough upgrade material to upgrade the weapons that you're currently using to make them strong enough? And if it is upgraded, do you have any extra materials to upgrade anything you find in the DLC that you may potentially want to use? Getting the bell bearings scattered across the game would be priceless and is something I would highly consider investing some time into if you haven't already. Another thing to take into consideration is, how many golden seeds have you acquired? Have you upgraded your flasks with sacred tears? Have you found enough to make your flasks strong enough for the content we're about to tackle? This is just another thing to factor in. If you're missing one or two of these things, it's certainly not going to break your experience by any means, but if you don't have any of these things, you're going to have a pretty rough time, while the person with all of these aspects of the game nice and tight is certainly going to be set up for success. And a few other things that we haven't touched on is the Flask of Wondrous Physique. Do you have the crystal tears you want for it? Check if you have all the spells you need. The incantations. How about spirit ashes? Do you have enough materials on deck to upgrade your summons? Do you have the weapon skills that you need for your weapon that you want to use? Just making sure your Ashes of War and all these little mid-maxy things that may be overlooked is brought back into the forefront for us to be on the lookout for. And this is why I think you should go either one or two ways when walking into this DLC. Either you take an already existing character that maybe defeated an endgame boss and you started walking into New Game Plus with, chipping away at that. This way you know that character has a solid foundation already and you're very comfortable and have experience with that current build. Or even make a new build on that same character to enjoy a fresh playstyle when coming back. This is personally going to be my choice and how I'm going to go about tackling the DLC. Or what you could do is make a new character, since we have about 3 months before the expansion drops, and go through the entire game again, looking to get that muscle memory back, gather majority of the items, and really take your time to get a very thorough playthrough, collecting as much as you can so your options will be wide open for you, and you'll be ready to go as soon as that DLC opens with your new character. And just to answer the question, so do you need to go into New Game Plus before entering the DLC? As I stated at the top, there will be a scaling system implemented, and I don't think it's super important by any means to get into New Game Plus. I think it'll be a good test of your character's power, but it's certainly not going to be required. Something to always keep in mind though, that in typical From Software fashion, their DLCs are usually a bit more difficult than the base game. So one more time for the record, if your character is comfortable in the endgame areas of Elden Ring, we should have a very smooth transition into the Shadow of the Erdtree. So I hope you guys learned something. I hope this was useful to you and maybe give you a little reminder of some of the things to keep a lookout for and what's important along the way. As always, hit that like button if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and I will see you in the next video. Toodles!